Hello all. So this will just be a test to see if everyone likes me making these videos and if the format is okay. Today I'm going to go over a few issues that I had when starting out this project and how to fix it, as well as possibly go into what we did in class, redo it a little bit more in depth, and show basically the code working, as well as maybe a few painted pictures to possibly get it more into your mind. The first thing everyone needs to know is when you import this project, there's some errors. Our build path is not built properly, so we're going to have to go ahead and fix that. The first thing I like to do with this project, and pretty much any project that I've just imported, is come up to Project up at the top, click on Clean, and this lets you select the project and clean it. And basically what this does is it gets rid of any issues from importing and any possible just weirdness from it going from one computer to the next. And it just helps make sure that your build is stable. So saying, that's going to make everyone's project have problems, because if you look into build path, we don't have all the Hamcrest files that it wants. So you have to make sure to go download those and import them, and any library that you're not using that has a red flag, go ahead and just remove it. I don't have any on here right now, but a lot of us decided to use MySQL as opposed to Oracle. Unfortunately, there's an Oracle one in here, and that's causing problems because the file path is not the same file path or whatever, so we need to make sure and remove. Doing this basically just makes your program more stable, making sure everyone has the correct jar files and you don't have any extraneous jar files that might be causing some disruption is a very good practice just in general. Doing the clean, make sure there's no just weirdness going on from whatever. Alright. So I'm going to go over the attending DIO test again. What we're doing here is we're testing the attending database access object. To do this, we need to test if we can register a student and get a student course. Now, in order to get student courses, we have been supplied student course test data. If I pull it up, here it is. We have this sample data, and we need to load it in. And that means we need to do a test preparation. Now, what I like to do for this is to do an at before class. Now, what at before class does is it runs this method that I've just highlighted. It runs the following method before the actual class runs. Now, why might I need to do this? Or why might I do this instead of saying do it before every test, which is what just the at before does? @before runs before every single test, and @before class runs before the method even starts. It runs before the class even starts. Now, why might I choose to do @before class instead of @before? Take a second, think about it, and then continue the video. Welcome back. So the reason we want to do this @before class is the data we're loading. We are only using that as an input and then as a comparison. We are not modifying that data at all. So I want to do it before my class actually runs instead of before every single test to just cut down on my operating time. It takes a lot less time to search through a file once than it does multiple different times. And that's pretty much it. If I was going to be modifying the data per test and then using that modifications in my tests, that's when I would go ahead and write an @before. Alright, let's just look at the code real quick, just time saving here. This is just a basic reading from a file code. Some things of note: we're calling the ATT list, which stands for attending list. We are creating a new array list object and saying that my attending list is that. That's all that's doing. It's setting aside space for a list of attending objects and saying that my attending list is that space. All that is not the hard part in this code. The hard part is the stuff inside my try block. Whenever you're using anything that accesses a file, you want to put it in a try block. You never know when that file gets corrupted or if the file's not there anymore, and you don't want your program to completely shut down if something happens to that file. So this is why we put it in a try-catch block. The try will do everything inside of its brackets until it gets to an error, and then it will just not do anything else. The catch catches the error, and we print it off. This is telling the program we expected something like this to happen. We don't need to shut down. We've handled it. Okay. So let's look at the code a little bit. String s equals null. This is basically a storage for our data when we read it from the file. Okay. The file reader is the connection from the Java application to the file. And let me move that for you. The buffered reader, now that we have the connection, we need to actually read from that connection. So the buffered reader is what actually reads from the file. Alright, so that's what it's doing. We have a file reader that connects to the file, and then the buffered reader reads from the file. We create a new buffered reader using the connection that we just created. That allows us to read line by line from the file. Okay. This buffered reader dot read line, and you take a second, think about that line of code, and just what is that doing? Why do I need it? What's it there for? Okay, so we basically need that line of code because if you look down here, our first line are headings. It's not data that we want, not data that we're going to use. So this first br.read line reads the heading of our data, then moves on. So essentially what that's doing, if I pull up a snipping tool here and I grab that little block of information, what the file reader is doing is it's grabbing a different color. What the file reader is doing is it reads that, returns it, and then moves on. But if you notice, we don't have a place to return it to. So the data is not going anywhere. We're not using it, but we're not going to read it again because it's stuff we don't want. After that, we create a while loop, and the while loop is what actually iterates over all of the file. We've already done the first line, so we don't need to do that anymore. And the parentheses here operate very similar to parentheses in mathematics. It's a grouping symbol. So we have a while, and then we have a grouping symbol. So that happens first. We say while the br read line, so the line that's read out of the file, is set into S. So if I take and look, this gets put into S, and then we check if it's not null. Since we have a line of text, it's not null. We then go into the inside of the while loop. On the inside of the while loop, we create an array of strings called new values. This array of strings is populated based off of the line of data we just read in, and we split it based off of something. What we're splitting it on is 2 or more white spaces. This line of, so that highlighted line of code there is what we would call a regular expression. And that's basically we want 2 or more white spaces in between our different separations. Alright, so that's line of code. Splits red line based off a regular expression for 2 or more white spaces. And that's what that does. We create a new attending right afterwards. And then as we go through, we set the different values of our attending object to the different indexes in our string array that we got from the line of input. Now, why might I need this integer dot parse int? What is that doing? What that's doing is essentially taking a string value, because we've set it to string, it's being read in as a string. We're taking it and we're looking at every single character and constructing an integer based off that string using that. So we convert a string to an int so we can set ID. And pretty much anytime you want to convert a string to something else, you're gonna have to create a parse for it. And this is how we do it. We then set all the values, and these are all the values in attending, and add it to our list. That corresponds to put for a stack or a hash map. And that's pretty much all that's needed for reading from a file and putting it somewhere. If there's ever an exception, we're going to print out the message, which is basically just the error. And then the stack trace is everything that's affected by that error. Error message, error, anything affected by the error. Alright. That is pretty much all we've done with this little bit of code. Okay, folks. This is going to be pretty much how the videos from now on, if I do make any more, are going to be run, about 15 to 20 minutes. Hopefully, if I do make any more, I'll have a chance to fix the audio quality and possibly video quality if that seems to be an issue. Just let me know if you guys want me to do any more, and suggest any topics you want me to do. Thank you.